How many of you have lived in more than one city in their life? Okay. And how many of you are involved in a startup that has people in more than one country? That's a pretty good score. And here once, I'm one of those people too. I've lived in 4 countries now, and between the founders of Teleport, the 3 of us, we have more than 10 countries under our belt, and it's counting. So what you've heard from all of the presenters before me, just to make the life easier, is that startups are everywhere. Atomica was showing numbers about the billion-dollar unicorns, and every single company on stage after that has been talking about how they have people all over the place. For me, the years I spent at Skype, already by the time we got to about 200 people, we were spread across 10 offices in 16 time zones. And I was moving from my entire family from Tallinn, Estonia, to London, to Singapore, and now I've been on the US West Coast already on the 3rd year. And talking to many startup people like myself and my colleagues, we've figured out that there are several reasons why people keep moving around. So let me walk you through a few of those that we've learned, and every time try to think of what would be the best place you think for that category of things to do. So for example, if you are bootstrapping a startup or just trying to extend the runway, you've raised like $500,000 and now you're trying to prove the product, where would you go? What's the place where the cost of living is actually allowing you to keep building longer? Then there are these places where you go to hire people. Like you think of great designers, you might think New York. You think of great engineers, you should be thinking about Eastern Europe probably. Then once you have all this distributed team of people around the places, then you travel and spend weeks and months of time just to work together with them, occasionally see the whiteboard. We keep joking in the small Teleport team that we're having on-sites. That's like our special moment, not the off-site meetings. Then you go to places to raise funding. If you're building a company that deals with, especially with enterprise clients, you travel to places that have those clients just to talk to them, understand what they need. And then with all this traveling, then you start moving to places where there are many more direct flight connections, just because every extra hop is a burden. And increasingly, especially over the last 2 years, being in Silicon Valley, I've met more and more companies who are now picking their location where what they do is even legal. For example, if you're building a company that deals with Bitcoin and drones, you probably shouldn't be in the United States, because both of them are kind of vague in the way they're regulated. Or if you're working on some really out there kind of gene technology. And last but not least, when we survey startup people on the move, then they also tell us a lot of very subjective reasons why they go around. For example, just to live a fulfilling life, to be in a climate that allows them to deal with their hobbies and so forth. The point being, the underlying point of all of that, is that if you thought of the places where these things are best for you, there is no single place where your startup can be. There are the funding places and engineering places and the design places and the client places and all these places that you constantly need to figure out. And figuring out, you can do it subjectively and on the whim, but if you're building a startup to win, you probably should be looking at some data. So just to give you a little illustration, there is this, let's imagine not even a founder, but a hypothetical software engineer who will be working for a startup and now is considering, should I go to London or should I go to New York for that? So you can, these are actually numbers, so you can pull the numbers for how many developer jobs are open in those locations at startups based in those 2 cities. You can look at the mean salaries for software developers. You can calculate manually the taxes for that tier between different countries' tax systems. Then you can seek out that 1-bedroom shared apartment in downtown or in an appropriate commute area, and then you can look at food and transportation and so forth, and eventually you come out with a net number of some kind. And that number, in this particular example, doing what you do in New York, you would be able to save $36,000 a year and put it in a fund and start a company sooner. I was here at Slush last year, which is funny because most of you probably didn't see the speech because the thing is 3 times larger now. But I was talking about my experience as an entrepreneurial resident at Andreessen Horowitz, where I had this constant inflow of my friends and new contacts from Europe, all kinds of entrepreneurs approaching me to ask for advice, should I move my startup to Silicon Valley? And that's something that you've heard some people reference in some speeches today. And there was so much passion for being where the action is, and there was so much desire to get to the right place, and this hope that this place will solve so many of my problems, that I actually turned into this sequence of blog posts and tried to unpack like what I think is wrong with that picture. And again, it is like you cannot just make those decisions emotionally, and you have to really carefully be able to verbalize why are you going somewhere, like what is it what you're looking for, and actually be able to see how you make the best of that place. And again, I don't think there is a single one. So just last Friday, with this nascent teleport team that we started forming back in June, and everything we do is really fresh yet. So we released a little product, which is like a technology review of how we think about this. So if you're today in a state where you're thinking that should I move to Silicon Valley, or am I at the right place in Silicon Valley, you should go to bayarea.teleport.org and just run a few queries. And we'll tell you that even inside this area of 7 million people and the 250,000 people coming in, people like you trying to build the startups and be successful, like there are massive differences between where you could end up. And in case of startup people, it's very often the difference between do you win or lose eventually. Next up, with Teleport, what we will be doing is to build more tools for you to not just look at Bay Area, but look at many other of the startup hubs or places around the world, and actually manage your life across the multitude of them. Again, you will not be living in one place building your startup, trust me. And you will have team distributed across various places, and what for other people in corporate environments might be just business travel, for you it will be months or weeks in places where you need to settle in. For us as a company, when we started Teleport and we looked at our own experiences and pains getting around, like you can put a few smart people in a room and ask them to whiteboard, and you will, in a few hours, you will have 100 things that you can fix about migration, human migration with software. So we imagine that once we figure out where you should be, we'll get on to the things that how do we actually get there. So building software that helps to figure out your regulatory situation or your taxis, or help you find an actual place or close the place that you need, get online in a new place, wherever that might be. And all of those things are little digital burdens that we see all around the world, how software could fix those. Why are we focusing on startup people, besides the fact that we are them? There is this interesting thing that I've noticed when I, again, in my EIR period and analyzing different areas and figuring out where I want to go, is that there are many niche things back in the history behind every great company out there. There used to be these places called libraries, which they actually exist, you just don't go there anymore, where you could walk to a drawer, get out the card, find a book, and find out information. That was like a niche behavior. You had to physically go somewhere. And now you will get the 2 million answers from Google in 0.2 seconds. There used to be this moment in every grandmother visit where you had the coffee, and then the photo books came out, and you had to look at Uncle Mike, how they looked like 28 years ago, and say, I like it. And now people do that behavior millions and hundreds of millions of days, times every day on Facebook. When I grew up, when Estonia used to be occupied by the Soviet Union, then you could still make foreign calls. The thing was that you had to go to a physical place and schedule the thing, and probably the call happens next day, and I don't know how much it cost. But now, so many of you have made free calls around the world, like just in the last 2 days when you need to. You don't have to consider it ahead. Again, there is a software company who has made that a everyday behavior. So today, when we're talking to people on the move around the world, we see tons of startup people already living this life. Maybe the mostly quant people among them, to actually using Excel sheets and to figure out the life, and okay, if I'm in this country for less than 180 days a year, I could actually declare my taxes in that other country, and then my kids go to school to this one. And people are doing this math in very small niches of actively moving people. The most famously known of them are the digital nomads. And we're building Teleport as a company to make that a mainstay behavior, something that all of you can access at a click. And our vision in the end of this is no less than that every government in the world should compete for every single citizen. Every government in the world, a group of people at some place, should be competing for every other person to join them. And what this means is that you create a great environment, for example, in the short term, for startups, and startups will come. You screw up an environment, you raise the tax too much, you don't invest in education or something like that, and the people will leave. And all this very fluid movement of people is something that we help to make much faster and smoother with the help of Teleport. Because free people move around. And I hope that you will check out the first early things that we built, and that you get in touch with us at teleport.org or on Twitter and start moving around. Thank you.